and there was a Stringworks man cave, and man, I had a tough morning. I did some real firewood cutting this morning. But before we get to that, I just wondered, have you ever heard of the Kentucky? I got to be careful how I say this next word because it could sound like something else. The Kentucky Hoard, Hoard. Have you heard of the Kentucky Hoard? It was a large cache of coins that were found in a farmer's field. The farmer had plowed the field, and then he was out walking the field looking for like arrowheads and different things. You know, he's just likes collecting things, kind of like me. And he happened upon a gold coin, and he, dug that out, and several more popped out of the ground, and then several more, and then he estimated he probably was finding 300 to 400 of them, and it turned out he had over 800 coins. 770, I think, is the number, were actual gold coins, and 18 of them were super rare dates. So, it's crazy, and they were all pretty much in mint condition. If you haven't heard of that, I put a link in today's video in the description, and you can click on it. This is an updated video. This is information that's, I don't know, it's been around several years. I don't know how many years ago that he actually found it. But today's video, the video I put a link to, is an updated story about it, and has some of the farmers' answers to some of the questions, which the farmer always wanted to remain anonymous. He hasn't really said much about it, but this time it gives some of his information in there, and I think it's interesting to hear it. So if you haven't seen it, or even if you have, you might find it, the new updated information to be interesting. So there is a link in the description. Check that out later. Yesterday afternoon, I decided I just had hit the wall, and I didn't do anything. I always feel guilty when I do that. I really do feel guilty when I just don't do anything. I don't know why, but I do. And but this morning, doggone it, I sure did make up for it. Take a look at this. Well, it is a really frosty morning here. Got the Ranger up here. The saw sitting on this old snag. This is one of the old trees that was from when it was logged. Figured I might as well cut this up. It's probably the last year that it'll be any good. Might as well get it done. And it's easy to get to. It's in a crossroad of trails here, so it's a perfect place. Let's get to it.
scrape a living from the soul. Like my father before me, I labor and toil, but But my father said, son, you should move away. He said, farm life is dying, son, please don't stay. I moved to the city and I tried to fit in. I thought of my father and how the crops would get in. I could hear him say, son, you should move away. He said, farm life is dying, son, please don't stay. For a visit, but I was too late. My father lay dying, I knew it was fate. But he turned and said, son, you should move away. I just couldn't leave him, and he knew I would stay. Now I'm an old dirt farmer, I scrape a living from the soul. Like my father before me, I labor and toil.
Wanted to show you how wore out this blade is, or chain. You know, look how tiny the teeth are. They're very, very tiny. It's been sharpened many times. You can even tell the gap between the raker and the tooth, how far it is. And yet, it's on this super hard wood. Look at that. That stuff's hard as a brick, man. And it just sawed right through it, no problem at all. Since I learned how to sharpen with my sharpener and figured out what the problems were with that sharpener, these things cut like brand new chains, even when they're really wore out like that. Might as well cut up some of those big stumps there. They're kind of hollow, but it'll burn. Well, I think that's all I'm going to cut up right here. Most of this isn't very good. The part that is good is real good. It's hard, real dried out hard wood. The rest of it, but a lot of this is hollow. That's the worst right there, but you can see that's not that hollow there. But some of that was pretty hollow. but most of it's good enough to burn, and the furnace don't care, and it will heat the house. I'm gonna go on down the trail and see if I can find something a little better to cut up. There's the main trail right there. Here's a big old blowdown. It's a bunch of it. There ought to be quite a bit of firewood in this. We'll go ahead and get this all cut up this morning, I think, assuming everything goes okay.
Seen a dogwood tree growing wild in the woods. The story goes that little tree once grew so large, but no more you see. That little dogwood tree so small once made a cross for one and all, and it had thorns that made a crown for our king so heaven bound.
Well, the temperature's only in the 20s out here. My hands are cold, but I'm sweating through, dang near through this sweatshirt. So I'm gonna put on a lighter jacket, fuel the chainsaw up, and go back at it.
Spring, the dogwood blooms, it blooms so wide and tenderly. It is a symbol of his life and his kingdom way up high. That little dogwood tree so small once made a cross for one and all, and it had thorns.
I've cut all of that and what you saw at the beginning, all with this wore out chain, every bit of it. And I cut it fast, you know, it wasn't like it was struggling. It did a good job, but it's starting to get a little dull now. You know, keep in mind, this is really hard oak. There's no rot in this at all. Super hard, actually. And I'm gonna go ahead and put a different chain on, just to preserve that one so that, you know, I can resharpen it easy. And then I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of this top cut up here, and I'm going to saw that thing up too. So I'm going to have a whole lot of wood here when we're done. Well, here's some remnants and all of this wood. So I'll just walk you around and show you. I cut little pieces here and there, cut quite a bit down through here, of course. You can see the top here is all cut up. All these little pieces, a lot of people don't fool with it, but you know what, when you go out in the early morning and you need to get the fire roaring, those little pieces are what gets it going fast. So I like the little pieces just as much as I like the big pieces. And you can see there's a lot of wood here, and it goes all the way down to that big stump and out this way too. A lot of wood. And across here. But sadly, even with the wood I cut yesterday and all this, I doubt it'll make it past Christmas, honestly. I really doubt it. I doubt it will make it to Christmas even. But you never know. It depends on what the weather does. There's a lot of wood here though. several trailers worth. I would say 3 trailers loads at least right here, and another trailer load that I cut yesterday, or near trailer load anyway. So I guess I'll get busy and load up a Ranger load right now. I'll probably load all this right here, just get that on there. Well, I cleaned up this mess here, and I cleaned up just the top of that big tree. And I'd say just the top, only part of the top really. That's how I loaded it down. That's a pretty heavy load. I'm gonna call that good for this morning. Head back to the house.
Yeah, that will take it out of you. Yeah, I'm seriously telling you, if you heat with wood, you don't need a gym membership. It seriously really is difficult work. That chainsaw that I was using is a 372 XP. That's a Husqvarna 372 XP, and that's the professional loggers use those saws, but that's kind of like on the low end for a professional logger. In fact, that's where I got the first one of those, was from a professional. He called it his trim saw. I call it my big saw, and I then use the steel 50cc saw for my trim saw. So, and for a lot of people, a 50cc saw is a pretty big saw, but that 72cc saw, it really gets the wood cut and in a hurry. So the smaller saw is great though. It, like when you're in a tree top for that smaller wood, the small saw is really handy to use. But it's just easier just to stick with one saw rather than switching back and forth. And so I just cut it all with the big saw. The big saw there, I forgot what it weighs exactly, but it's right in the neighborhood of 20 pounds. So you're up and down with 20 pounds. Just think of how many, well over 100 times, I'm sure. And then, of all of that though, as hard as all that is, I've said this before, and I have a feeling people don't really believe it. The hardest part of the whole thing is walking through all that mess. There's rocks under all those leaves that you can't see, and they just roll back and forth under your feet. There's sticks, from the treetop, and then there's little saplings that are growing up, and those saplings are hardwood saplings, and so they're really stiff, especially the hickory ones, and they catch into everything. They catch into your saw. They catch into your clothes. They catch It's way worse than it looks like on video. It's the most aggravating part of the whole thing. It's just walking around and trying to maintain your balance. The actual work, if it was out on flat, smooth ground, be a piece of cake. Wouldn't take me no time at all. But doing it on that kind of ground with all the rocks and the sticks and stobs and things sticking you. There's also plenty of thorn bushes and sticker bushes too that are sticking you left and right too. So it's a tough job. It really is. Let's go to the comments and see what's going on. David Tharp says, howdy. He says, I read the junk mail about memory loss and I forgot to delete it. That could happen to me. There's Rod Wentler and Kim Z from Arizona and Joe Cool, USA. And David Tharp says, my mom used to say, you may not be the dumbest person on earth, but you better pray that he doesn't die. Yeah, that sounds like a line my mom would have used for sure. I don't think I ever heard her say that one, but she had a million of them. Gino Hitch, hi Jerry and friends. Hope everyone is staying warm. Yeah, I stayed warm out there this morning. I seriously had to go straight from all that to straight to the shower because I was soaked. I'm in the 20s like that. And of course, when you take off your coat, like to switch to a different jacket or something, it's freezing cold out there because you're soaking wet. And it only takes a few seconds to really feel it. Bill Webb, good afternoon. And then Bill Rhodes says, good afternoon. Brian Byler, afternoon. And Bill Mumbo said he missed the last 2 days doing Christmas things. Well, we'll let you get by, but only this time. After we went live, David Mumbo says, I was watching an Australian cooking show where the chef was making meringue. The audience cheered, and I thought it was strange because the Australian usually boo meringue. I got that one. I read that one while the video was playing. Let's see. Bruce Ducker says, greetings all from balmy Central Florida. Thankfully, it's rather pleasant outside. Well, it's pleasant here, too, if you like it freezing cold. Let's see. Wayne Blitz says, good afternoon, Jerry and friends. Hope all is well and safe with everyone. Then David Tharp says, who was that fiddle player on the Old Dirt Farmer song? He really laid down some tasteful strings. Yeah, that was the late, great George Ports. I had his name, and then when I try to pull it up, it won't come up, you know. I read this while the video was playing, and of course I knew it was George Ports, but when I have to say it, it just doesn't come out. I don't know why that is. It's just that way with me. But anyway, George was a really fantastic fiddle player. He didn't play with our band normally. He just sat in with us on the recording session. George had won a national fiddle championship, a large fiddle contest back, I don't remember when, 70s, 80s, something like that, but he was very, very, very good. And he sadly passed away just a few years ago. And Bill Mumble says, I really like that Dogwood song, thank you. George played with us on that also in the background. Let's see, David Thorpe. Kevin Boy says, great song, thank you. David Thorpe says, what a great song that Dogwood tune is, thank you. I've told you the story before, but we really don't ever play that Dogwood song. We just never do. But I played it one time on that contest, McDonald's Gospel Music Contest. And I've told you this before, but there's lots of new viewers and stuff. So anyway, there was over 500 bands that auditioned during that contest, over 500. And some of them were just, choral groups, they weren't necessarily musician type bands, but a lot of them were bands. Anyway, you only had just a couple of minutes to play your song and get out of the way and let the next group come in, So anyway, we played that song. And then it was weeks later, I thought, well, we would have heard from them, we didn't hear any, and I didn't expect to hear from them with over 500 auditioning. And yet we did. We got a call back, and we were one of the 20 groups chosen to play live at the Fox Theater there on Grand Avenue in St. Louis. The Fox Theater is more or less world renowned as being a really fine place. It's a really fancy theater, and it was really cool. That's when that curtain went up and you see over 4,000 people in the audience. It kind of makes you get a few pigeons in your stomach. Like I said, it's not butterflies when you're doing something that big. It's pigeons, man. Let's see. Moving on down, and I've lost my place. Ronald B5M says, BTUs for you and Sue. Yeah, that's true. Then David Thorpe says, I stayed up all night trying to figure out where the sun went. Then it dawned on me. I bet it did. Ronald Todd, good afternoon, Jerry and everyone from the West Banks of New Jersey. Sorry I'm late. My house cleaner was here. Well, there you go. At least you have a house cleaner. I'm not about to go any further with that on this house here. The only thing I will make a comment about on this house here, Bob owned this house when we bought it, and his wife was here at that time. And Sue says, "This is such a huge house. How long does it take to I bet it's a monster to clean or something like that." And the lady, she was just as bad as Bob was. She says, "Oh, this house, it only takes 5 minutes to clean it." 7,000 square feet of concrete. It only takes 5 minutes to clean it. Yeah, well, the difference was, though, they had aisles, paths. You had to walk through the paths sideways to get through the house. We had to walk through the house, I don't remember how many times, 2 or 3 times before we even had a decent count on the number of rooms. And I think I counted like 13 and Sue counted like 11. I'm not exaggerating. It was floor to ceiling piled full of mostly antiques. It was crazy. Let's see. Just got to find back where I was again. Let's see. Kevin Boyd says, "Greetings, Jerry. If I don't see you in the future, I will see you in the pasture." Let's see, 6-12-12, the fertilizer guy there. Actually, we used to use 12-12-12, not 6-12-12, but, whatever. It's good you have enough dead wood to keep you in firewood. It scrolled on me. Waiting until cooler weather to cut it is a plus. Oh, yeah. I know that lots of people are probably silently commenting, "I wonder why he just doesn't cut that all ahead of time." Well, like I said, the first problem is I'd have to cut twice as much as I would use in 1 year to get ahead. I'd have to cut enough for this year, plus I'd have to cut enough ahead. To do it ahead, I'd have to cut enough for the next year. Well, that's not really practical because you just don't understand how much I'm cutting. Like I said, all that wood that you've seen me cut really this whole year, I mean, not just yesterday and today, but there was some more I cut before that too. All of that won't even make it till Christmas. I don't think it will. It might. It's possible. We're getting close now, but it'll be borderline if it makes it to Christmas. And so then you still got January, February, and most of March that you still need firewood for. And so it's just not practical. And the second thing is that it's not practical to cut it here in the summertime because the ticks, chiggers will eat you alive. And I mean that literally. Keep in mind, I've already had Rocky Mountain spotted fever. The ticks and chiggers are bad here. You do not want to be out there cutting firewood in the summertime here. Plus, it's so hot. That kind of work is so hot. Like I said, even though the temperature was in the 20s when I was out there cutting, and all I had on was a sweatshirt, and I sweated through this shirt and my sweatshirt, and I had to take that sweatshirt off, let it kind of air out and dry off and then put on that lighter jacket. That lighter jacket was it's basically just a heavy flannel shirt. It's all it is. So I'm just out there in 2 shirts, really, and sweating through that. It's hard, hot work. It's, like they said, it warms you twice. It actually warms you several times because by the time you cut it, you're pretty warm, and then by the time you haul it, you're pretty warm. And if you do any splitting, you get pretty warm again. So it keeps you warm, that's for sure. Let's see. Bill Hyder says, "Hello, Jerry and friends. I'm staying warm by my fireplace." Well, there's also 4 fireplaces in this house, 4 of them. And I've got them all blocked off because all they would do is suck the heat right out of here. I mean, and I know I've told you all this before too, but the last 2 owners, Bob included, but the one before Bob also, both of them went bankrupt here because they were too lazy to cut the firewood to heat with firewood. They used propane, And as I told you, when I closed on this place, there were 2 propane companies. They're actually oil companies, but you know what I mean. They sold propane. Anyway, they were there at the closing to collect their money. So, I mean, you would lose your whole life savings in a matter of a month or so here trying to heat it with propane. You can't do it. It's just impossible. And then the next thing is always, why don't you insulate it? It's insulated, trust me. And myself, I tore out all the exterior walls, furred them all out to 6 inches thick because they were only 2.5, well, whatever it is, 3.5 inches, I guess is what the standard 2x4 is. But they weren't standard 2x4s anyway. This is all rough sawn oak lumber that the walls are made out of. But they were roughly 3 to 4 inches. And I furred them all out to 6 inches and then put in 6-inch insulation, put in all new windows, all new doors. And it's still impossible to heat. So, guys, I've done it all. There's no point. The only reason I'm still living here is because I can still do this. And as soon as I can't do this, we're going to move up to the house that I built over there on the hill that is presently our Airbnb. And we'll move there and heat it with electric. And it's a small house, and it's not a problem to heat it with electric. There you go. So there's that whole story. Again, I know I've told it many times, but so many people constantly email me or have comments about, why don't you do this? Why don't you do? Trust me, I've done it. And then I've even had comments like, well, if you would use quality firewood, you don't think in the last 28 years I've used some quality firewood? Trust me, it don't matter. You can put anything you want to in that furnace. And you're up, the furnace, the only thing it cost me is labor. That's all it cost me. I mean, I cost a little gas, for my chainsaw, a little, upkeep and maintenance on the chainsaws. I would cost that out of pocket, but that's it. Otherwise, I'm getting heat, probably like 10 of your houses, I'm heating for free. And that's the truth. I mean, it really is like that. It sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not. It's like that. Bill Hyder, Jerry, hello, Jerry and friends. I'm staying warm. Okay, got that one. Let's see. David Tharp says, thumbs up, y'all. I would appreciate that if you would do that. That does help me. Bill Webb, if you do a play along tonight, I'd like to hear Dirt Farmer song, also Sweet Melinda. Okay, I'll see if I can do that. If I get around to it yet, I may try to learn a new gospel Christmas song too. Because I just don't know. I didn't do anything yesterday afternoon. I just hit the wall and said, forget it. Rick Alford says, hi, Jerry. My first time live on your vlog as a amateur luthier originally from Alaska. I have followed your work for several years and enjoyed and learned tons from all your videos. Well, that's cool, Rick. Thanks for making a comment. I appreciate you being here. Very cool. David Tharp, I've been to that Fox Theater to hear St. Louis Philharmonic Orchestra. Yeah, it's a really super nice theater. I mean, it's not your average theater. It's really plush. It's pretty cool. G&P Old Marine Shop. Hello, Jerry. Your song Dirt Farmer should be on the country music radio stations. Well, thank you. Rick Alford says, I read the story of Frank and Fanny and was curious if you now live on their old homestead. No, we do not. There is family that still does live there, relatives that I don't really know. They're from the other branches. Like my Frank and Fanny, listen, I'm trying to remember now. Is he my great-great-grand? No, he's like, it'd be three greats, I think. I think he was my great-great-great-grandfather. Then his son George was my great-great-grandfather. His son Levi was my great-grandfather. And then his son Wes was my grandfather. And then there was my dad, and then me. And so, yeah, quite a number of generations. If you all haven't read that story on my website about Frank and Fanny, it's a good story. It really is. I realize it's about my family, but it's a good story. It's something I think would interest a large number of you if you haven't read it. And if you like to read, which I don't, but anyway, it's on my website. You can find it there. Let's see. No, their homestead, in fact, is about from here, hour and a half away, something like that, probably. Let's see. Moving on down. G&P Old Marine Shop. They play just a few songs over and over. I turn it off. Yeah. Well, I'm not exaggerating on this. It's 100% true. I quit listening to country radio about 2001, somewhere in there. I haven't listened to it since. And I don't miss it. I just don't like it at all. I mean, I was a real country music fan of the real country and country type music, I still like a few of the newer guys. I mean, I like George Strait and Alan Jackson and those kinds of guys. Those guys were still pretty traditional, And I even like Garth Brooks. I mean, I liked him, and I like Brad Paisley. But after those guys, it just kind of went in the toilet as far as I'm concerned. Let's see. G&P Old Marine Shop. Have you seen those Chinese diesel heaters? One model will heat 2,200 square feet. Maybe try one. Yeah, I sort of. I mean, I'm vaguely familiar with them. I'm not sure I know which specific one you're talking about, but I don't know. Like I said, when I can't heat it with wood, I'll just go to the other house. That's pretty much the way it's going to be, I think. Don Nice, the Mirror song would be nice. I'll write it down. That one's called He Doesn't Look Like Me. And let's see. Vine Covered Church. Don Nice also. By the way, I didn't write down all the names on who asked for these, so sorry about that, but I'll see if I can do them anyway. Wavy Gravy. If old Bob's invention had hit the market, he might have been a millionaire. It was doe urine scented aftershave for the outdoorsman who has everything. Yeah, that would be something that he'd probably endorse. Yeah, Bob was a mess, man. Anyway, that's about everything for today. I appreciate you all being here. 112 viewers at the moment. Especially enjoy having the new people on here, so thank you for being here. We will see you this evening at 7 o'clock with a play along, and hopefully I'll find at least one or two gospel Christmas songs that I can try out for the first time. Kind of stupid to do that live, but why not? We will see you then. Thanks for being here.